Welcome to the Blue White Tailgate Show. Steve Jones, Phil Grosz, Todd Sadowski. Great to have you with us. Homecoming at Penn State. Phil has his own float. Really cool. All right, so, and it's perfect for Penn State to have homecoming right now because they're in bounce-back mode. It's going to be a whiteout at Beaver Stadium. Just getting back home, Phil, is a big, big deal.
Yeah, especially after last week, which was a big disappointment. And we all know how the fans, it's a complete sellout. It's supposed to be 108,000 fans there. So maybe the emotion of the evening can really spur on this football team.
And it's another whiteout at Penn State, and nobody does the whiteout better than the Nittany Lions do. In fact, over the years, you look what they've done with the whiteout games. But the emotion in those whiteout games have been tremendous. You got to remember, you look at that record. Those are big games, Todd. That's why the record is right around 500.
Absolutely. Marquee opponents, primetime atmosphere. But the expectations, set aside the game for a moment, the expectations of the atmosphere, Coach O'Brien's really jazzed up about it. The players are really excited about it. Some of those empty seats will now be filled, and they'll all be white.
And you mentioned Coach O'Brien excited about it, Todd. Indeed, he is. That brings us to Sounding Off with Bill O'Brien, presented by the Family Clothesline on the whiteout and the crowd.
This is an exciting opportunity. I mean, you know, Penn State, Michigan, ESPN, 5 o'clock, 108,000. You got Nittanyville, you know, going crazy over here. I mean, I think it'd be crazy to think this is just another game. I mean, I think this is a great opportunity for our team. Our kids are really excited. I love it.
And Nittanyville, by the way, has been filled to the brim since Monday night. But, Todd, as a Nittany Lion football team, they know there's some correctable things that they'll have to take care of.
Absolutely. And coming off a bye week, you expect a little bit more from the offense. And, of course, I offered my brilliant analysis last week that collectively Indiana's defense stinks when they were giving up 240 yards plus in the rushing game. So it was very disappointing to see how Penn State's rushing attack didn't get the job done. We've heard of the shotgun formation. Well, last week for Penn State's offense, it was take the shotgun and shoot yourself in the foot kind of offense. And the problems begin on the very first drive. Things get weird right away when Zach Zwinak grabs the football as Christian Hackenberg attempts a play-action fake. The Lions go for it on 4th and 5, a few plays later at the 27, and fail to convert. No points on a solid first drive. A botched snap on a field goal attempt hurts the cause, but the rushing attack never materializes as expected. Zwinak and the other backs are constantly met by multiple tacklers. The defense continues to give the offense opportunities. Obvious frustration from Coach O'Brien could lead to more playing time for other Lions.
You'll see more guys playing this week. You'll see more guys playing this week. As long as they practice well, Monday through Thursday, you'll see more guys playing well this week.
One player absolutely essential is Allen Robinson. His individual brilliance leads to the only score of the first half after he slashes his way past the Hoosiers secondary. Add a blocked field goal to the problems, 7 possessions and only 7 points before halftime. Move to the fourth quarter and the ill-fated gamble to go for it on 4th and 2 in their own territory. After the ball hits the ground, Indiana goes to work. A touchdown, fumble on the kickoff, followed by 6 more. 2 scores in 12 seconds, game over. Even this week's opponent acknowledges the strange happenings in Bloomington.
They're a physical football team. You know, it got a little crazy last weekend down in Indiana. I mean, a lot of points, a lot of yards by both teams.
It is one for the history books. Penn State finally loses to Indiana, a defeat that Coach O'Brien quickly leaves behind.
I've moved on to Michigan. Indiana's over. It's in the rearview mirror. The game's over. We're very focused on Michigan. We're putting together a game plan, and we feel like it's a good game plan. But again, we've got to go out and execute it on Saturday night. We're very focused and excited about the game.
Can't blame Coach O'Brien for not wanting to talk about that Indiana game. And it's hard to be hypercritical of guys in this age group. You guys know, late teens, early 20s, you get uneven performances, especially when 28 of the guys traveling on the 70-man roster are freshmen or redshirt freshmen. But one of the keys to the game last week for me was first half scoring. Yeah. Indiana was allowing over 20 points. When you walk away with only 7 in 7 possessions, add to that an intentional grounding on first down, then the safety with the sack in the end zone late in the game. It was just really disappointing the way that the offense did it because the defense actually wasn't too bad up until the third quarter.
All right, so now let's get to the series, Penn State and Michigan. Let's take a look at the series between the two. The Nittany Lions have actually won the last 3 in this series. It's the first time that Michigan's been here since 2010, which now brings us to the first time this has ever been played. It was game number 1,000 for Penn State. Upon further review, presented by the Penn State Bookstore with Fran Fisher.
In 1993, Penn State was welcomed into the Big Ten with a full slate of conference football opponents, highlighted by a home game with Michigan. Nittany Lion fans had already developed an anti-Wolverine mentality since they knew the athletic hierarchy at Michigan was not exactly ecstatic about Penn State's invitation to join the conference. Ex-athletic director Bo Schembechler wasn't bashful about making his feelings known, being highly critical of the Big Ten presidents for not consulting athletic administrators. As you might suspect, this didn't sit well with the Nittany Nation. The relationship was further strained at Beaver Stadium on game day when on the Wolverines' first possession, in the student section end zone with a noise level deafening, quarterback Todd Collins refused to snap the ball 3 times. Can't hear, he kept miming. Then Big Ten officials got off on the wrong foot with the fans when after 2 warnings, the referee assessed a 5-yard penalty against the Nittany Lions for crowd noise disruption. Well, that won't happen Saturday. The rule doesn't exist anymore.
That's the best student section in the country. They're crazy.
Give it to them, students. This is Fran Fisher for Upon Further Review.
Indeed. Remember that like it was yesterday. You looked around and said, what are they doing? It was incredible. All right, and by the way, just for the record, Michigan, Indiana, Minnesota all voted no on Penn State's admission into the Big Ten. So, yeah, they got off on the wrong foot. Now everybody gets in unanimously. Interesting. All right, coming up, we'll look at the offense as we continue. We welcome everyone back to the Blue White Tailgate Show presented by Rich Coast Coffee. Todd Sadowski, Phil Grosz, I'm Steve Jones. In the middle between these two combatants, you see how they battle it out every week. It really is so hard being in this particular spot. All right, let's talk about some of the issues against Indiana. We'll start with the run game, Phil, because you took a long look on your shows this week and on your website this week talking about that.
Yeah, Penn State really has been very simplistic, I think, with their run game. They had a lot of success against Eastern Michigan and some of the earlier teams on their schedule, and they basically run the ball on a couple of plays between the tackles. And I think the script's kind of been set, Steve. Everybody now is going to load the box, put 8 people in the box, maybe walk up even the safety in that type of situation, and force Christian Hackenberg to throw the football. And I think you got to do what Bill O'Brien alluded to in his post-game press conference in Indiana. They're going to have to diversify the offense a little, especially the running game. And I think the only time they ran outside the tackle box against Indiana was the reverse with Allen Robinson. That's got to change.
All right, so let's take a look at the running game numbers to this stage of the season for the Nittany Lions. You can see what they've done each game so far, and our clever staff so far has told you that they have a question mark against Michigan. Well done. Yes, not even we know yet what it's going to be, okay? So, I mean, Todd, how do you fix it?
Well, I think you get some people out on the edge. You got to stretch it a little bit, and, you know, we talked about the quick passes and those types of things, but you know, we didn't see Akil Lynch very much. He's certainly got a lot of speed. You can stretch him out to the end and then move Zwinak up the middle. You got 3 backs you're trying to use. You know, I think the offensive line's going to look around at themselves, and if you're going to fix it, they're going to have to fix it up front, and they're going to have to say to themselves, we need to dominate this line of scrimmage and get some push immediately right away off the snap of the ball.
Bill O'Brien is impressed with each layer of that Michigan defense.
It's a typical Michigan team. I think Coach Hoke is a fantastic coach, and he's done a great job. I think he's in his 3rd or 4th year there of putting together the type of team that he wants. And on defense, you know, they're very stout up front, very stout. The linebacker core, they play a lot of guys there. Secondary is very disciplined.
I remember in the 1992 game where Kerry Collins put the ball up 54 times, which was unusual. It set a record at that time. Penn State did not beat BYU. Christian Hackenberg, Phil, had 55 pass attempts in this game to break that record.
I think that's correct. But I think the most amazing statistic, the ball game was 21-17 going into the fourth quarter. And at that point, even with the score that close, Christian Hackenberg had thrown more passes going into the fourth quarter than Nate Sudfeld of Indiana had done.
Yeah. Our player of the week, though, is a guy that had 12 receptions on those 30 completions, and that is Allen Robinson, 173 yards on 12 receptions. Another brilliant performance. This is his 6th career 100-yard receiving game. It's the 4th 100-yard receiving game he's had this year in a variety of ways. You see how Bill O'Brien gets the ball to him, and, of course, his ability to change an entire play here, and then over the middle, sidelines, and his ability just to make plays. He's just there are very few playmakers in this conference that are better than that guy right there. And that's a perfect delivery of the ball, by the way, by Christian Hackenberg. And so when you look at Bill O'Brien, you say, you've been around a lot of great wideouts. He was actually the wide receiver coach, by the way, at the Patriots before he then moved over to quarterbacks. How good is Allen Robinson?
He's faster. He improved his speed, which is really hard to do. I think in our scheme, we've moved him around, so he's become smarter in our scheme. Last year he played mostly on the outside, but now he plays everywhere. He plays number 3, number 2, plays number 1 weak, number 1 strong. Put him in the backfield a little bit. So, he just has a lot better knowledge of our scheme, and all the credit goes to him.
This is one silky smooth player, Todd.
Absolutely. And if you want to see what Allen Robinson's all about, just look at the very first touchdown. He runs a quick slant inside, catches it, has already planted his foot, spins away from the defender. He already knows what he wants to do. Then 2 guys converge on him, and he cuts between them and takes it the distance. That's what Allen Robinson can do every single time he touches the ball.
Time now for our drive of the game, brought to you by Stocker Chevrolet. They're located on the Benner Pike across from the Liberty Mall, and a brand new showroom, by the way, on Tribal Street. Here it is. This is the opening drive of the second half. This ends up being a 13-play, 80-yard drive. We saw the Zwinak run. Then, Allen Robinson, big surprise, getting his hands on the ball again. There's a nice pump fake by Hackenberg to set up the inside run. His ball handling is really, really strong. First down, just pounding it straight ahead. Penn State was 50% on third down in this game. And then here's the delivery of the ball into the end zone. You really cannot deliver a football better than that on the Stocker Chevrolet drive of the game.
And I think what was so good about that game, they had a great mix, run and pass. It was one of the few times in that football game where I think Indiana's defense didn't really know what the next play was coming.
And that was right. That was the first drive right out of the half, Phil. So, I mean, there's some second half adjustment right there.
There's no question about that. And you just wish, as you go back and look at the final outcome, they would have had that type of mix for the first half of the football game.
Penn State took the lead on that drive 14-13, and this is where you have to give Indiana a lot of credit. Instead of Indiana saying, uh-oh, here we go again, they actually bounced back on the ensuing drive, and they put it on the board and took the lead again themselves and then hit on a 2-point conversion. So you have Indiana credit. When they were pushed at that point, they then responded. All right, let's talk about the Penn State defense. We'll do that as we come up in just a few moments on the Blue White Tailgate Show, presented by Rich Coast Coffee, as we continue right after this. Welcome, everyone, back to the Blue White Tailgate Show, presented by Rich Coast Coffee, as we sit in the beautiful Aaron's Furniture. They'll get a little bump at the end of the show. We're just hoping to take it with us at the end of the season. All right, so let's get to the defensive performance, Phil. You look at what they did defensively against Indiana, and you say?
I thought the first half, I agree with Todd. I thought they actually played a pretty good football game in the first half of the game. But I think sometimes you got to give your opponent a little bit of credit. I think Indiana, with their offensive game plan, did a tremendous job of really targeting Penn State's weakness. Penn State came into that game with all three of the, Hull not 100%, Wortman banged up and with his shoulder, Klein not even able to play, and they had 7 screens to their backs and wide receivers, which the linebackers got to come up and really handle. And those 7 screens, close to 90 yards of offense, and really important in getting conversions for first downs on drives.
And of course, one of the key guys, and he played at another high level, 10 more tackles, Glenn Carson, talked about what this defense needs to do.
I wouldn't point it to one thing in particular. I would just put it down to execution. Just as sometimes we're just not, functioning as an entire whole. One person might miss an assignment here or there, and that can hurt us.
And there's no question about that. And Todd, I mean, there's just certain things. They need to come together because they've had some really good defensive moments this season, solid performances. They just need to get back into that.
Yeah, no doubt. And with the first half performance, they're counting on their offense to get a lead against a team like Indiana. That is a tough team to defend for 60 minutes. But if you can take the run option away from them, make them more one-dimensional, that would have helped the defense. The one problem they do have is they used to be a bend but don't break type of defense. They gave up 6 touchdowns in that game. If they could have held Indiana to some field goals, the Hoosiers did a nice job sticking it into the end zone. But you keep them to 3 points instead of 7 a couple of those times, you're sticking in the game a little bit longer in the second half. But they had only given up 13 with about 10 minutes left in the third quarter, and then they just broke.
Right. And by the way, they forced 5 3-and-outs in the game. So, I mean, which is important against a team like Indiana because those 3-and-outs against Indiana means it's a minute's worth of possession. That's it. C.J. Olanian was our defensive player of the week. Let's show you what number 86 did during the course of this game because he was a real presence the way he played. Right around the goal line, key play, taking down Sudfeld there. Now deep in their own end, look how he plays the run here. And not only that, his wingspan played an important role in this as well. It's not just knocking down passes, you can alter passes as well. And look how he plays this screen. They floated him, Phil, in this defense. They used him as a floater. Was it really? And he did well in the role.
That's something that was good against the type of offensive attack that Indiana uses. And he showed he's very athletic as a defensive end, so you can use him in a stand-up position. It'll be interesting to see against Michigan on Saturday because they're really traditional power style, pro-style offensive attack. I think maybe you see him back go to a normal type of defensive end.
And a guy that's going to be important going forward. He came out of the game healthy. Mike Hull is a guy that he's going to make this defense better because he has the instincts to be a playmaker, Todd.
100% or not, double digits tackles, right? I mean, he gets right back in the lineup, and there he is. He's around that football. So you combine him with Carson, you get Wortman back a little bit. There's going to be a lot of pressure on the linebackers this week. As Phil mentioned, pro-style offense, they're coming straight at you. Not a lot of mystery. So these guys need to get in there, they need to get dirty, and they need to get first contact and bring the runner down.
It's interesting. Gallon's had a really good year. Drew Dillio's another really good player. But last week they really did a great job, Michigan did, of Devin Funchess. They do a good job of getting mismatches in the secondary with his size, the way Penn State does with its tight end. So it's not unusual for Penn State fans to see. Secondary is going to have to handle those mismatches.
And Funchess is an athletic tight end. Yeah. He actually, averaging 19.7 yards per catch. He's their guy that they go to in critical situations, which is kind of surprising. Actually, they're a two receiver offense. You got Gallon at the wide receiver, and you got Funchess at tight end.
All right, so now let's get a feel from Glenn Carson. Excited about the atmosphere and the opportunity.
Coming off a loss like this is just going to motivate us harder. I see more of a focus in our team after losses. So I think that losing that game will definitely keep us more focused and get us to work harder, in practice, in the film room, in order to get a win because we're hungry. We want to win.
Yeah, no question. I mean that's what it comes down to. And there's a real hunger on this team. That's their personality.
Football is about execution, certainly, but it's also about emotion and it's about character. And their character has come into question after last week's game, coming off a bye week. Now we're going to see what happens. They're going to have the emotion with the crowd behind them. They're going to have the home field advantage. Let's see what kind of character they come out and see if they can execute along with it.
Execution is very important. In fact, we've had several people look at us over the years and say, you know what, we're all for their execution. All right, coming up, Phil and Todd come back to take a look at recruiting. This is a huge recruiting weekend. Not small, but huge. We'll come back with that after this.
Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate. It is time to talk recruiting, brought to you by Central Pennsylvania Dock and Door and Phil. Huge weekend. I don't think that's a big enough word. Humongous, whatever it is. We got a lot of kids coming that are coming to watch this game.
Yeah, whiteouts are Penn State's favorite time for recruiting purposes. They'll probably have close to 120 kids here, probably the second most. I think they had 135 last year for the Ohio State football game, but not just kids that are in the class of 2014, Todd. They're going to be 2015, 2016, and even a couple of kids that are freshmen from the class of 2017. I know there's a kid that's expected to come, good freshman running back down in the Harrisburg area by the name of Billy Williams from Camp Hill High School. So we'll have to wait and see, but humongous recruiting weekend and at the perfect time for the class of 15, 16, and 17 because it's right after those added scholarships from the NCAA.
Yeah, there's not going to be a lot of room on the sidelines, but they're thinking maybe there's room on the roster for me. And, you know, you got to remember the current players were once part of that recruiting process, and linebacker Glenn Carson remembers it fondly.
Yeah, I remember I came to the Illinois game my senior year, and I kind of knew that I was going to commit, but I came up kind of with the idea that I was going to commit, but just the atmosphere and being at a Penn State football game was, phenomenal. It was really cool to see you could feel the tradition roots and stuff while you're at the game, and it's just a huge crowd and great fan support. So, for those recruits, I think that they're gonna really enjoy the game and kind of see what we're all about.
And no surprise to hear Carson say, well, I wasn't 100% sure, but it kind of made up my mind. And that's really what these kind of trips can do for you when a person comes, and this can really influence their decision.
No question about it. And I'll tell you, Penn State has a unique little policy. The student body will be working with the coaching staff. And one of the things they did, I remember Derek Williams was a freshman. The class after Derek Williams, they had a whole host of kids. I think it was 90 or 100 kids. But the student body knew the top kids that were coming for their official visit that weekend, and they were singing their names the whole time from the stands.
Everybody's keyed in. And these are unofficial visits,
yes.
right? I mean, maybe one or two might be official. So explain the difference between an unofficial visit and an official visit.
Well, unofficial visit means the university can't pay for anything. The coach or the family that's bringing the kid up has to pay for the gas, has to pay for the meals or anything. Once they get on campus, they can take care of them while they're on campus. But the whole trip is got to be paid for by the families. On an official visit, the university picks up almost everything on the tab.
Okay, and we talked about that there's a few more spots for these guys to be available for scholarship offers. So let's get some of the key visits, some of the names that we are going to hear, and some of the guys they are really looking forward to that maybe the student body may be singing.
Well, Penn State now got some extra scholarships to give. Jason Cabina, he's a linebacker from New Jersey. He's a young kid that's already committed to Syracuse, but Penn State's now offered him with the extra scholarships available. He probably won't make a decision, but he's very, very interested in Penn State. Probably the most important kid, and it might be an official visit, is Thomas Holly. He's considered one of the top 4 or 5 defensive tackle prospects. He's from Brooklyn, New York, and a lot of people are saying that maybe down to Penn State and Ohio State. And there's a kid named Mike Gesicki, a great tight end, and you know how Bill O'Brien likes to use tight ends in his offense, and a lot of people are saying that may be Ohio State or Penn State. And the one guy that we're really concerned about, and a kid that they've really kind of highlighted, Monte Nicholson, he said about a week and a half ago he was going to be there for the Penn State, Michigan football game. Right now we're hearing that he's kind of tired of the recruiting process, and we don't know for sure whether he's going to be here, on Saturday. But it's a real important visit. And I don't think you're going to see maybe kids from the 2014 commit, but the kids, they're really, really on the kids from 2016 and 2015. And a lot of kids from those classes are going to be here on Saturday.
All right, so Beaver Stadium's going to be packed in the stands and on the sidelines. We take a quick look at the Penn State injury report from Health South, and we can take a quick look because everybody's pretty healthy. Brandon Felder back, Ryan Kaiser probable. We hope we see him in the secondary. When we come back on the Blue-White Tailgate, we break down the Wolverines. How good are they? Well, we're not sure. We know they're undefeated. We're going to talk about the Wolverines' offense and the defense when we return.
Not exactly what we refer to as toe-tapping music here. All right, so let's get to it. Brady Hoke, the head coach of Michigan. Phil, this is a guy that has stepped in. You know, Bo Schembechler years ago when Bill Frieder left for Arizona State and he installed Steve Fisher as the head coach and they won the national championship that year. He says, look, I want a Michigan man coaching Michigan. Brady Hoke's a Michigan man.
He's a Michigan man, and he's trying to restore, as I see it, the Michigan football program to its roots. He wants to play a pro-style offensive attack, run the ball between the tackles, and punish people. They haven't quite got there yet, and we'll get the little bit of their statistics from the running back position, but that's what he wants to get done.
But it's also only his third year, in all fairness, so you're transitioning over the talent that you had before to the talent you want. Let's see what he's done so far in his career. Now, that includes being undefeated, by the way, at home. They have not lost a game at Michigan Stadium under him. That also indicates to me that, Todd, on the road, there have been some ups and downs.
Yeah, they have some issues on the road. If
can I take numbers?
You're, you know, just that connection you made there. You're just so sharp and so far ahead of the rest of us. But it, you know, it's a traditional program. Most wins in college football history, 908. So if they're going back to their old ways, probably not a bad idea because they've won a lot of games that particular way, and Brady Hoke might be the guy to get them there.
The question is, how good are they? They're 5-0. That's really good, and any coach in the country takes 5-0 at this stage. Rashad Hageman, though, the defensive lineman from Minnesota, who, by the way, is one of the better ones in the Big Ten anyway, going into the Michigan game, as you'll see here, wasn't exactly overwhelmed by what he thought of Michigan. And he's a guy who called him ordinary, Phil. In the end, they didn't look ordinary against Minnesota.
I'll tell you, I think the most surprising aspect of this Michigan football team is I was talking to Todd while we were doing another segment, and they only have one running back, Fitzgerald Toussaint, who has rushed for 100 yards in their first 5 games. And we really came up with a statistic at Blue-White that shocked me. You know, last year in 2012, the Michigan running backs only averaged 72.8 yards per game rushing, the worst in modern Michigan football history.
Yeah. And Toussaint was hurt last year. Now this year he has one 100-yard rushing game. So does Gardner with a 100-yard rushing game so far. Gardner had 103 yards in one game. So let's get the read on Gardner, who's had his ups and downs, from Bill O'Brien.
He's a dangerous guy because he can run and throw, and you know there's a number of guys like that in this conference. I think the thing you got to try to do is you really have to try to keep him in the pocket. When he gets out of the pocket, he's very, very dangerous.
And no question he can be, but he's had ups and downs. He's had some big moments like Notre Dame. He's had some down moments like Akron and UConn. You don't know sometimes.
Well, and it's turnover prone. So, you know, as Phil mentioned to us a little earlier, they get into third and long situations. He's a gambler. He's a risk taker. Now, Penn State hasn't exactly been creating a lot of turnovers, so something's going to give. Either he's going to be efficient with his throws or Penn State's going to create some turnovers. But he's a little bit more effective than you imagine through the air. He can certainly run on the ground. Last week he was 13 of 17 for 235 yards against Minnesota. So this isn't a running quarterback that completes about 50% of his passes. 71 of 118 for the year for over 1,000 yards. So you always look for those, how many yards per attempt, not necessarily per completion. It's almost near, it's 9 to 10 yards every time he throws the ball. So that's not bad.
And here's something about that Minnesota game, by the way, guys. That broke a streak of 24 consecutive games by Michigan where They finally didn't turn the ball over. They had turned the ball over in 24 straight games. They had no turnovers, no penalties last week. Now let's get to that running game. Fitz Toussaint, though, is, Phil, a really good back. Maybe not a great back, but he's a really good back.
He's a good cutback runner, and they need him to be really healthy, and that's where he's come through. I think he had like 397 yards. But the aspect that's a little bit disappointing if you're a Michigan fan and you're Brady Hoke, he's only been able to average about 4.1 yards per carry. They really haven't had that big home run capability with the running game.
The wideouts, Jeremy Gallon's had a good year. I mean, when they get the ball to him, he's a breakout player. And then we mentioned earlier about Devin Funchess, and they move him around at that X.
And could create some matchup issues for Penn State. Gets past the linebackers. I mean, really, it doesn't matter if it's a linebacker or someone in the secondary. There's going to be things that you cannot deal with when you've got a big, quick tight end like him. And last week was a kind of a breakout game. Introduced himself to the Golden Gophers for sure. 7 catches, 150 yards, and got in the end zone. So some weird names out there, right? Fitzgerald Toussaint, yes. Devin Funchess. But you might want to remember these names.
I have.
Certainly you, too.
I'm the only one of the three that really has to remember all the names. And numbers, 28, 21, 87. Got you guys down. All right, so let's take a look at the tail of the tape between the two in the matchup. Offensively, that's what they do. The total yards, the yards rushing, and so forth. That's what the Penn State offense against the Michigan defense and how it stacks up there. So let's get to that defense. Blake Countess has 4 interceptions already this year, Phil, and we might see him matched up on Allen Robinson at times.
I think they'll do that. He was hurt last year, didn't play, has come back and really done really well. He really has a nose for the football, and they like him in man-to-man, one-on-one coverage. He has that capability, and that's extremely important because the rest of the Michigan secondary has a little bit shaky at times.
Yeah, Raymond Taylor and so forth. Cam Gordon, but they might get Jake Ryan back. Tore his ACL in March. At least an emotional boost to have one of their leaders back.
Anytime. I mean, it's the same thing with Mike Hall for Penn State, right? I mean, anytime they're a different ball club when they've got him in the lineup. And what I like about Michigan is their linebacking core. They've got Ross, they've got Morgan. Those guys are their leading tacklers. And then you said Cameron Gordon, he's their leading sack guy. So they've got some multi-talented guys. They're versatile. They can come at the passer, and they can also bring you down when they make contact with you.
All right, so we bring up tail of the tape, take 2, as we match them up. The Penn State defense against that Michigan offense. You can see how the numbers play out right there. The passing numbers actually are pretty close between them at that particular stage. Ty Howell knows that going up against the Michigan defense will be a challenge for the guys up front.
Michigan's defense is tough. They have a really good front seven. Their secondary's been playing well. I don't think they've allowed a rushing touchdown this year. I mean, those guys they're that old throwback Michigan defense who are tough, hard-nosed players and like to get after it. And
how much of a mystery is this game?
I think it's a big mystery. I think Penn State kind of matches up pretty well with Michigan. I don't think you're going to see the same type of a football game that you saw with Indiana this past Saturday. I don't expect a lot of points to be scored in this football game, and it'll be really interesting because I think Penn State's defense will be much better prepared to handle what Michigan brings to the table.
Yeah, I agree with that. There'll be a lot of emotion in the stadium as well, and of course, Phil mentioned in a previous segment, a lot of recruits there as well. Yeah. Coming up, we take the filter off Dave Jones. I know that's hard to do, but we take the filter off as we continue on the White Tailgate. Welcome back to the Blue White Tailgate Show, presented by Rich Coast Coffee. Time to bring in somebody I consider to be a very good friend, and at the same time, I also think he's one of the finest writers in the country with his ability to turn a phrase, see things. David Jones from the Patriot News in Harrisburg. David, welcome. Great to have you with us.
Thanks, Steve. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, Dave. Dave, you always do a great job of looking at the big picture. So at this stage, whether it's season or not, what's your big picture on Penn State football right now?
I think they're not very good, and I don't think they're going to be very good this year. I think their offensive line is a problem that we did not anticipate, and that's the one unexpected problem that you don't want because it affects the whole team. It affects all sectors of the team. And I don't think they can run the ball against just about anybody. That's been proven. If you can't run it on Indiana, you can't run it. So they've got some trouble. I'm not sure if Ty Howell is maybe completely healthy. I don't know that he's not, but he's been shaky in the middle, and I don't think they anticipated that. I think a lot of people really expected him to be very good. Yeah. And I don't know what's going on there. But they have, and it's not just him, they've kind of across the front. They haven't gotten any push on running plays when they've tried. And in the 3 situations last week in the first half, they tried running plays, first down, second down, first down, second down, and they ended up with 3rd and 7, 3rd and 5, and 3rd and 8, I think it was, in that sequence. And that shouldn't happen. I think it happened in the first half against Eastern Michigan, first half against Syracuse. Those aren't good defenses either. So I think we've got enough of a sample size to see that, and that's a problem. They also have they don't have a defense that's got any playmakers on it that I can see, and that hasn't happened in a long time. Yeah. So you got some real problems on both sides.
You mentioned playmakers. You've had a chance over the years to cover so much Penn State football. You look at an Allen Robinson, what do you see?
That's a playmaker. Got one there. You know, he's an NFL-ready wideout right now. He could jump and meld right in. He's big and strong, catches everything, gets yak, everything you want. He needs a little help. I don't think any of the other wideouts are getting much separation. And if they were, he would be just hell. As it is now, they can run a guy over the top on him and pretty much hope to control him. And that's what a lot of schools have been doing. But, boy, you need help on him. He's an awful lot for one corner to handle.
Yet this is a Michigan team. Would you agree that there's some mystery about them coming into the game despite a 5-0 record?
Man, I don't think anyone in this league is very good, even Ohio State. I just don't. Ohio State and maybe to some extent Northwestern, and then a cut down to probably Wisconsin and Michigan State and the rest. But what have any of them proven? Nothing. That Akron team that Michigan needed Dave Whitvet to beat, they just lost by 40 to Ohio last week. That indicates that everyone in this league is way, way below. You know, the bye week a couple of weeks ago, I got to do what all of us rarely get to do, and I don't know, sometimes I guess I don't watch enough SEC, but I watched 3 SEC games there at once that weekend. I had Alabama, Mississippi, then Texas A&M at Arkansas, and can't remember the other one.
Georgia LSU.
Yeah, a great game, incredible game. Had all those on at once and switching back and forth, and then I went over to Ohio State, Wisconsin. It's supposed to be, you know, the elite of the league, I guess, and it just was like watching the Premier League and then switching over to MLS. It's just not there. You know, it's like a couple notches into the minor leagues. It's a different game up there, and there's no indication that it's ever going to get any better in the Big Ten. I think that's the way it is.
Dave, always a pleasure. Appreciate the time you gave us. Look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Hate to be such a downer, but you picked a bad week, buddy.
That's okay. I always appreciate your perspective anyway, Dave.
Of course.
Hey, I look forward to seeing you on Saturday, and
All
of course, obviously, basketball season coming up too.
You're
Dave
right,
Jones with
Steve.
us.
That's a thought.
Dave Jones with us for the Patriot News. We'll come back and wrap it up in a moment on the Blue White Tailgate Show presented by Rich Coast Coffee after this. back. Blue White Tailgate Show presented by Rich Coast Coffee. And as we get ready for this game, Nittanyville is ready as well on a whiteout homecoming weekend with Elise Murkowski.
While sleeping out on concrete may not be my cup of tea, for the 769 students of Nittanyville, Gay Day will play home as they camp out for front row seats to this week's whiteout. With homecoming, a matchup with Michigan, and a declared White House, excitement levels are high at this year's week-long campout.
So a lot of people are really excited. Last night it was incredible. There was a lot of buzz around here. A lot of people they're really excited to get back into Beaver Stadium. You know, a White House, everyone knows that it's a sold-out game. So they can't wait to get back here.
After recently being named the best student section in college football by Bleacher Report, the fans' commitment does not go unnoticed.
Again, I've said this, and obviously I'm very biased, but this is the best college football atmosphere in the country. We've got a bunch of kids out here in Nittanyville right now. We can't thank the fans enough.
While Nittanyville provides campers with exciting activities like the Trash Can football tournament, it's not always the most comfortable setting, but for those involved, it's all worth it to cheer on the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, oh, it means the world to us. It gets cold here some days. We're not sleeping in our dorms or apartments. We're out here on concrete, so it gets rough at sometimes. Just hearing those words, it makes it worthwhile. They notice and appreciate us. That's what it's all about.
When Saturday rolls around and the tents are all packed up, Glenn Carson had one simple request for the campers.
Just make sure you're loud. We appreciate you guys all out in the tents at Nittanyville, and we can't wait to see you guys out on Saturday night.
A little discomfort's all worth it for the best seats in the house as Penn State takes on the Wolverines. For Blue White Tailgate, I'm Elise Murkowski.
Love this time of the year, whether it's homecoming, whiteouts, or great college football matchups. Let's take a look at the top 25 and what they have. Red River rivalry is there. Oklahoma, Texas in the Cotton Bowl. Oregon, Washington, Florida, LSU. Good games across the board in the top 25. Big Ten. Guys, I think the marquee one in the Big Ten is going to end up being Northwestern and Wisconsin. And Northwestern-Wisconsin matchup as we take a look at the Big Ten as well. Nebraska, Purdue, Indiana, Michigan State. That should be good as well. All right, so take a look at everything. Phil, now we get to this part where we take out the crystal ball.
Yes.
Right, and we find out what you think. So why don't you label some keys for us and what I think is really a great matchup between these two.
Yeah, I think Penn State has to have balance offensively. They got to run the ball in this football game. And then we talked about, Devin Funchess, the tight end. Adrian Amos is really going to have a key role when in coverage against Funchess. And Penn State, I think, has to make Michigan one-dimensional. Stop the run and get Mr. Gardner in 3rd and long, and in that situation where he makes those mental mistakes.
For me, when I look at this game, I look at some of the basic fundamentals of football coming into play here. I think field position is going to play a very important role in this. The Penn State offense, we've talked about running the ball and so forth, but they've had almost all season a long field to work with. They've only taken over on the plus side of the field 7 times all season. So they need to create their own opportunities, whether it's special teams or their next key, and that's giveaway, takeaway. Penn State needs to force a couple of takeaways in this game to change the tone of the game against a team that has had a habit of turning the ball over. Todd?
For me, find another reliable option through the passing game. Allen Robinson's fantastic. He's got 38 catches. Nobody else has more than 16, and only one other wideout, Gina Lewis, has a touchdown catch. That came in the first game. They've got to find somebody else that can get into the end zone through the air. Michigan's defense has not allowed a rushing touchdown. If maybe Zwinak can bull his way in from a couple yards out, I think the Nittany Lions have a chance.
We are really looking forward to this. Homecoming, whiteout, Penn State, Michigan, and it has all the ingredients for a great game. 5 o'clock Saturday at Beaver Stadium. Our thanks to Aaron's for the great set furniture. Blue White Tailgates presented by Rich Coast Coffee. Thanks for joining us.